Okay, so I'm just gonna skip a few chapters and I'll go right back in order. So, this is 5.11, by the way. We have language. So, language acquisition, basically. So, think this language, in a way, in theory, leads to complex thoughts. You know, babies, when they think like very simple things, and then when they grow up and they learn language, they think a little more complex, right? Well, then there is, okay, well, the video starts with secondary and then it goes on to primary. So, secondary is basically conscious activity that's trying to encode the rules of the second language. So, think of when you're learning like Spanish in your high school and you're learning new rules that are different from like English ones. Now, I never learned Spanish, but you can think of a few, I believe. Primary language acquisition, unlike secondary, is unconscious. You know, as a baby, you are wired to learn language. And, you know, Chomsky said that humans must learn language, and, you know, deaf babies, even though they can't hear, they will still babble, which is sort of proof in his theory. And a language acquisition device, you know, is basically the thought that humans will learn language no matter what. And in this case, with his theory, Chomsky is nativist. You know, think of nature versus nurture. So in this case, it's nature. That's like they're born with the ability to learn language, like they're wired automatically at birth to do so. And then in the other version of it, you know, not the other version, but the flip side is nurture, right? So Sapir thinks that language affects the way we think. So, like, for example, an idiom in English, like a piece of cake, it means easy, right? But there's no story behind it. Unlike in Chinese, we have 心底之蛙, which is narrow-mindedness, but there's a whole story behind these small idioms or these small slangs. So I guess in a way that in Sapir's theory is that when I think of an idiom, I think of a story rather than like just a shortcut of something else, another way of saying something else. Linguistic determinism is thoughts you're going to have based on a language, and linguistic relativism is a baby version of this, which means that thoughts can be altered if they learn new languages. So like linguistic determinism is because you learn English first, you're gonna think thoughts in English. If you learn Spanish first, you're gonna think thoughts in Spanish. If you learn like German first, you're gonna think thoughts in German. Linguistic relativism is basically like if you learn a new language, like me, I learned Chinese after I learned English, that my thoughts would be altered a little bit when I learned the new language. For example, people who originally speak Spanish as a primary language have like male and female masculine or feminine versions of saying like different things, and in English it doesn't, so maybe it would swap in a way. That's linguistic relativism. And both of these, linguistic determinism and linguistic relativism, are called in the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. And speaking of babies, there is stages of language acquisition, right? There's, stages of which a baby would learn language. So the first thing they do is they have eye contact. So, when you like do this or you do something with your eyebrows, you can sort of tell what emotions other people are feeling. Same thing with babies. They can give you like a blank stare, a tired one, and an annoyed one, and you'd understand what that means, right? They're communicating you in a way, showing like connectedness. And after that, after maybe a few months, a few weeks, no, definitely a few months, not a few weeks, it would be babbling, right? They would say words like dada or mama or something like that to indicate something, but not something that we could comprehend unless we're like possibly the parent who has been with the baby for a long time. After that, it's hollow phrase. So basically one words, juice, go, tired, sleep, hungry, all of those things. They convey a meaning. With no context, but they do have a meaning. And then telegraphic speech is they give context, like a little bit. Like for juice, they say juice spilled. That in that way, in the context that we know of, the juice has spilled. We don't know where, but we know the juice has spilled, right? there is fast mapping. So it's an unconscious sort of process where they begin to understand that we use context in our words, and they learn the meaning of new words. Like for example, we say that this is a table and we're sitting in a chair, and that way in the context they sort of see that, oh, the chair is something that my family member is sitting on, and the table somewhere where they are eating or writing on. Overgeneralization is basically where they are trying to learn grammar rules, but they're not really. Like, how in the English language we use ran, not runned. So yeah. Then there's a critical period where they're learning things really, really fast, and their brains are just absorbing information, so they have to learn something, like something very vital, like language, English, good grammar skills, good math skills, good historical skills, I suppose. And then after that, it's the sensitive period, where they start to learn like language, like a secondary language, because they comprehended the first one already, and this is like the best time to do it. And yeah, and after that it's just growing up and just polishing on these skills, and over time they become more fluent in their language.